Hey guys, Weeb here. Welcome back to another video by Variety MMOs. Today we're going to be focusing on a Ranger class guide for PSO2. The subclass that we'll be focusing on with the Ranger class will be the Hunter, to provide defense bonuses focused more on new players to give them a better chance of survival. So the things we'll be talking about in today's video: an intro to the class, pros and cons, choice of weapons, helpful PAs and weapon abilities that I personally use, a little bit of a skill tree explanation, a link to a skill tree that I use for both the Gunner, the Ranger and the Hunter, and we'll talk about some extra items like the mag and the rings that should be used to just optimize your damage a little bit more. I would just like to push home the point that this guide is aimed at new players to help them get into Ranger class, leveling up and getting some high-end stuff done, rather than focused at super hardcore extra 1% damage at the end of the game, because that is not what this video will be focused on. Okay, so let's talk about some pros and cons. So some of the pros for the class is that it's great single target and AoE damage for the rifle / launcher. So while you can use the launcher for single target and you can use the rifle for AoE, it is simply better to use the rifle for single target and the launcher for AoE, because that is what they specialize in. And with both weapons combined, you will do great in a lot of different scenarios, be it small numbers, big numbers, or just a single big boss. So this build is extremely tanky. It auto uses potions and auto has defense and ability to prevent you from dying. This class is being presented this way so new players that don't know boss mechanics, and if they get hit too many times, which is going to happen, it will come in clutch and it'll prevent you from dying so often, which honestly it'll help you learn faster. So this build is very specialized on new players. So ability to lower the enemy's defense for massive damage. So you have blight rounds, which is here, and you use these and you shoot them at the enemy and it lowers their defense. You can make this even more powerful if you use it on a boss when it's, for example, stunned, or it opens up its weakened point. Then you use a blight round on it and it'll give you massive damage, which is extremely good. Okay, so some of the cons is manual targeting can be tough. So what I mean by manual targeting is this. So you may have to put this into controls. It may not be on a controller by default if you are using a controller. But as you can see here, the targeting is a little bit, like, it feels okay, but as a new player, it's quite hard to get a hand of, and you need to use it for some big abilities like this, because if you shoot this and you miss, or if you don't hit them in the weak spot, you're simply not going to do as much damage. So it is important to get used to that. Charging times on powerful PAs. So two of your most powerful abilities actually have a pretty big charge time, which can be extremely annoying. But you can get around that and just use other abilities in between when you know a boss is going to move. But overall, it can be a little bit tough to get a handle on. Okay, so poor close range options. So you do have some options, for example, to jump back like this, or you can jump forward like this. So you have a bit of mobility to escape short range situations, but if you are close range, like this close to them, best idea is to get away, because you are medium to long range and not so great at short range, even if you do have a cannon. Okay, so now that we've talked a little bit about that, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the weapons. So when leveling up, I would just get a weapon from a store. So generally, I believe the Elder weapon will be the best. However, the Elder weapon is probably going to be extremely expensive when new players get into the game, so I hesitate to recommend that. Instead, just to get a grasp of the game, and works absolutely fine at max level, I would focus on this weapon here. So this weapon can be obtained from a store in just the gate area. Go around and have a look at the stores, but you'll find it, and it's not that expensive to buy. Upgrade it, and it's a great weapon which will last you indefinitely. Is it the best of the best 100% damage? No, but it will clear any content and it's easy to obtain for new players. Once you've got a solid understanding for the class and whatnot, then feel free to get the Elder Rifle once you've got more gold and max out your class. But for the more casual or newer players, definitely go for this weapon, because it is simply so much easier to obtain than an Elder Rifle is. So let's talk about some of the attacks before we get into combat. So you'll notice down here that we have PP, which is basically your energy. So whenever I say energy or PP, it's referring to down here. So when you auto attack, you'll notice a red circle around me. If you fail to click that in time, you're actually going to lose a lot of damage on this build. This build is focused on you successfully hitting this constantly, so your damage actually goes up. So you're going to lose quite a bit if you don't. However, it's not, be all end all, but you're definitely going to be slipping on the damage charts if you don't do it. So it is a little bit tough to learn as a new player, but it's really good because if you can learn to successfully do this on this class consistently, then you'll be able to do it on all classes, which will make your damage output a lot higher. However, people with like 250 ping like I do, it's a little bit of a struggle, as you can see right now. Okay, so this is your normal attack, which will restore your PP. You can use this when you're rolling, for example, to auto fire like this. This will get your PP back really quick. You can just kind of roll, fire, roll, fire. You can also use this with, spell it here, forward, roll. So as you can see, you get a lot of distance and then you get to fire to get your PP back. So next up would be Piercing Round. So Piercing Round is this here. So Piercing Round is best used in the air. It's basically like a piercing bullet that takes quite a lot of PP and can be used without a charge time. So whenever you're moving and you have full PP, just jump up in the air, shoot the boss, boom. A bit of extra damage, so it's great for that. Next up would be Positrion Blast. I can't pronounce it to save my life, but here we go. This is what it looks like. So this is the charger. As you can see now, I'm fully charged. The problem with this ability though is that you kind of have to charge it. And if a boss mechanic comes at you, you'll die. 100% you'll get one shot. That's why this build is focused a little more on defense to prevent you from dying when using abilities like this. Remember to use the aim, so you can aim where you're firing it, aim up, and then you get to fire it. And then you're going to want to aim at the weak point of the enemy to do a massive amount of damage. This does pierce, so it can go through enemies and hit the enemies behind it as well. Okay, so next up, let's have a look at Slide Burst. So Slide Burst, it doesn't have invincibility frames without crafting, but I won't talk about that because it doesn't exist in NA right now. But you can still use it to get out of enemy attacks, because as you can see, a lot of enemy attacks are big circles, so you want to click it, jump back, and then as soon as you get up, you can then start firing again and not get hit by the boss AoE. It can be helpful, but not necessarily everybody's going to use it. Most people are going to turn around and run away. Next up would be the Impact Slider. So Impact Slider, as I showed you a moment ago, will allow you to jump forward. And what it'll do is it'll do some damage there, it'll kick and do damage there. But what you want to do is you'll want to slide, do damage, and as you're finished with the shooting, then you want to roll. This way you get the maximum amount of damage moving forward, and you get to move towards mob packs to get to your optimal distance. Then you want to use your Slide Burst if you get a little bit too close. Next up would be Satellite Cannon, which is your highest DPS ability for your PP cost. So here we have Satellite Cannon. So as you can see, the circle will get smaller, and this is now at its maximum damage. It's a little bit hard to control. If you try to control it like this, look at this. See, that's not really going to work, right? So you want to go into target aim and look like this, and then fire it wherever you want to fire it. And it should be able to fire basically anywhere that you can point your mouse. So you kind of have to use the aiming in a lot of scenarios when it's using this. Okay, so some of the other abilities which are not PAs that you'll be using is you have Blight Rounds here. So the Blight Rounds, when you use it and you attack an enemy with your auto attack, it uses the Blight Round and it lowers their defense. If you're using a PA though, it won't actually use it, for example. It didn't actually use it. And if you have your Blight Rounds activated while you're using this attack, for example, you're not using them, but this is saving you PP because of one of your abilities. So it's not necessarily a good idea to use your Blight Rounds as soon as you get them all. Next up here, we have Gravity Bomb. So you can throw Gravity Bomb like this and it will suck all the enemies in. It's not huge, but it is quite nice if there's just a small pack right in front of you, and then you can pull out your cannon and obliterate them. Next up, we have Stun Grenade. This will basically stun them. You also have a couple other traps in your abilities, which you can access by going to equip weapons, go into here, and then scroll down. Okay, so next up will be your Guard Stance. So by default, you're in Fury Stance, which is what's giving you your extra damage. However, if you're going to take a lot of damage all of a sudden, hit Guard Stance. So now I'm in Guard Stance, I'm going to take less damage. But the downside to this is that you do less damage as well. So you only want to activate this in emergency when you're going to take a lot of damage and you know you're going to take a lot of damage. Similar along with this video, with this ability, we have Hunter Physics. So this is actually going to give you a lot more defense. This is kind of like your crutch that you're gonna take a lot of damage, even with your defense abilities. You know you're in trouble. Use this to kind of just boost your defense for a while, or in a particular rough phase of a boss fight. Least but not last is PP conversion. So PP conversion will make it so we get a lot more PP, aka our energy back a lot faster, but look at the HP bar in the way that it reduces your maximum HP. So now you can feel free to go and use your gravity bombs, your stun grenades, and basically your charge up abilities as fast as you want, and your PP will come back a little bit faster than usual. Combine this with the sliding forward, the sliding back, and the auto attacks, you should have no problem when it comes to PP regeneration. Okay, so that covers the basics for the rifle. I do apologize if it was a little bit complicated, I do get that, but I did try to simplify it as much as humanly possible. Okay, so let's have a look at the skill tree. Reminder that these skill trees will be below the video, so make sure that you click on both of them. So this is the Hunter one. So the main thing that I want to point out is the Iron Will, Automate Half, and the Perfect Attack. So the Iron Will, this will make it so you don't really get one shot. There's a 75% chance of leaving you at 1 HP. This is for beginner players, and it'll really help you get used to the class without dying a lot. Automate Half, it automatically uses items to heal you when you fall below half HP. So this in conjunction with Iron Will is extremely strong. Perfect Attack over here. So before I mentioned the red circles, so you'll notice here that you get 10% ranged and you get 10% here. So by hitting these red circles, you're getting an extra 20% damage if you actually hit them on time. So it really is important that you get used to it. If you try for a while and you just find that you just can't do it, maybe it's not the class for you, but an extra 20% damage is really a lot of damage. Okay, so let's have a look at the other skill page. So the other skill page, which is again down below, which is the Ranger. Okay, so the reason we're doing this on the Ranger is because we're going basically full in on the defense and the ability to do more damage both when you're moving and when you're standing still. So what I mean by this is, for example here, you do an extra 15% damage if you hit the enemy when they're their weak spot. So if their weak spot is their head and you hit them in the head, it's an extra 15% damage, just raw damage. And then up here you get an extra 15%, so there's 30% damage drop if you don't hit them in the head, and another 20% if you're not using the red circles. That's why it's so important to both use those and to use the aim to make sure that you're always hitting them in the weak spot, because it really is a lot of damage overall. Then you have the blight rounds, which is what lowers their defense. Remember, if you load the blight range, the blight rounds, and then use PA abilities, your PP won't be used up as much, and it won't actually use the blight rounds until you auto attack. In here we basically just have stationary fire and mobile fire. So basically you do more damage when you move or when you stand still. Either way, it's just more raw damage. Here is that if you put on special rounds and then swap to your cannon, it'll actually stay in there because you have this ability. And yeah, that covers just about everything for the guide for the skill tree. So let's have a look at a couple other nifty little things. So the mag. The mag would be 200 range. As you can see that I currently don't have 200 range on this mag because I was testing stuff out on various different mags for videos, but you definitely want 200 range support on mags because that is a lot of raw damage, which is multiplied. The other thing that I want to mention is your rings. So right now, I will show them in the inventory actually. So if you go down here, you'll notice I have 3 rings. So you have left ring and right ring. So the left ring, precision bright rounds. Bright rounds will lock on areas even when obstructions are present. So you can target a weak spot. And if the boss puts its arm up, I believe it still hits him in the head anyway. So, or if you go behind things. So this is important to have generally. Launcher non-weak bonuses. So when the launcher is equipped, the weak hit advanced skills effect is enabled for more places than just weak spot. So basically you do more damage with the cannon if you have this on. Generally I don't use cannon as much, so I generally have the blight rounds on. So for the right ring, you're going to have PP conversion, boost automatic PP recovery for a set time while lowering your max HP. So this is what is actually on the bar, which is located over here. So if you click this button, your HP will go down and you get more PP recovery. It's important to remember that you can play whatever playstyle you want, but if you really want to get good at the class, you need to play both the rifle and the cannon. I'm more rifle, so I'll never be a 100% pro at the class, but you definitely need both if you want to be great at the class overall. Okay, so that should cover all the basics you need to know about the class and to get your level 75 and everything you need to know to be a reasonably sufficient ranger in PSO2. Thanks for watching, guys. Peace.